Hello and welcome to the Gonzales Mitchell Show. I'm Clay Mitchell.
And I'm Patrick Gonzales.
And today I'm going to be talking with Patrick about a disease. It's a disease that Patrick had, and that's alcoholism. And I wanted to give Patrick this entire forum to talk to people to see, hearing this story, can anybody be helped? And we'd like to help anybody that we can. Patrick, uh, tell us about this.
Well, thank you, Clay. And let me just begin by giving a quick chronology of my drinking career. And I started drinking on July 20th, 1969. I was 12 years old. I was over with my folks at the Miles River Yacht Club in St. Michael's. It was the day we landed a man on the moon. And my folks had gone out and they were at some party and there was beer left on the boat. We went over. My parents had a boat, and I don't know. That night, I remember watching clearly the moon landing, but I also remember drinking 6, 7, 8 beer. I don't know. I was 12 years old. Anyway, so through high school, I was not what I would call a problem drinker per se. I was really into athletics, but I remember at a young age I didn't sit around at home with my parents drinking when they had friends there when I was 14, 13. But I also don't remember not really worrying too much about getting caught.
Mhm.
Anyway, my senior year of high school, I went to a private school in Annapolis, and I was at that point what I would call a weekend warrior drinking. We partied hardy. There were 30 of us in our graduating class, and about all 30 of us would get together every Friday, Saturday, and I started drinking. And then when I graduated from high school, that's when it really began. And I started drinking constantly. I graduated a year young. I was immature. Ended up taking me 7 years to get my college degree. I got that. But throughout, I'm drinking. I'm tending bar, waiting tables to get through college. I'm drinking. I get married soon after college, have a child. I'm still drinking. And I'd say by the late 80s, I got to a point where I could kind of control my drinking vis-a-vis, well, I don't feel too good today. I'm not going to drink. But by then, I just gave up. And until November 12th, 2015, there's no way to politely put it. I was a drunk. I was an alcoholic. Now, I was a functioning alcoholic. And I think
Right.
one of the problems with that was I could convince myself all the time that nothing's wrong. But I'll be honest with you, Clay. By the time I was 55 or so, I had given up. And on Veterans Day 2015, my wife came to me and said, Patrick, it's time. And through their help, I went into rehab. And here I am on November 12th. That will be my celebration. The last day I drank was November 11th. I will be celebrating 9 years.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. When did, I guess the question is, along the way, 1969 to 2015, that's quite a stretch of time. Did
It is.
did your alcoholism affect your relationships with your wife, your kids, or friends, or
You
anything like
know,
that?
I think it certainly did. It certainly did. And I think it much more affected my relationship with my children. And, I remember right after quitting drinking the next year, my oldest daughter, actually wanted me to go on vacation. And I thought, man, that's amazing. And I was so friggin' oblivious to the impact I was having on those around me. My wife, God bless her, she stood with me forever. And she told me when they had the intervention, she said to me, I'm not going to leave you, but I'm going to be pissed. And what she meant was she expected soon to come home, find my fat ass dead on the bed, and she was going to have to deal with the funeral arrangements.
Yeah.
But not once it never was I threatened. Yeah, and I was the type of drunk, Clay. I never needed alcohol to lose my inhibitions. In fact, it was kind of the exact opposite. I was kind of a sorrowful, mournful, quiet drunk. And I drank mostly at home. And just to give you a sense of my alcohol consumption the last 10, 15 years, I would go through 4.5 gallons of Kentucky Gentleman, that's a bourbon, and
Mhm.
a week. And that doesn't even begin
Wow.
to include what when we went out. And but I always
Wow.
had my wife the whole time. She would do the driving. I never was put myself in a bad position. So
So it your wife was sort of was your caretaker when that was going on and making sure that you didn't get into any problems. Now, when you see things like that where your wife has to drive and you said it affected your relationship with your kids, what did you do to justify continuing to drink during those looks like 45, 46 years? How'd you justify it?
yeah, 46. How did I justify? I drank more, and I'm not being smart ass. That's what I did.
Yeah.
When I started thinking, I drink more. And Clay, I don't want to dwell on this too much. Alcoholism is part of the issue that I've dealt with my entire life. But I've had emotional, mental health issues my entire life. And in the beginning, and I've really experienced, I'm going to be upfront. What I suffer from is what's known as extreme panic disorder. And what that means is that all of a sudden, something you will get to a point. Sometimes it's triggered, sometimes it triggers it. And it's the most god awful, unbelievable feeling a human being can have. And if one has never had that, oh, I'm so happy for them. But those out there that know what I'm talking about, it's like nothing that we human beings should have to experience. And I had my first major panic attack when I was about just a little before 30. And at first, I sort of would kind of try to control it. And I said, well, if I'm feeling kind of weird, I'm not going to drink. But Clay, by 1990, I'd given up. I said, screw it. And then you would think, did the alcohol help with the panic? Well, maybe in the beginning a little, it would calm me roughly down. But the fundamental problem was a chemical imbalance in my brain. And by the end, all the alcohol was doing was exacerbating that
Yeah.
imbalance. So, it's all kind of tied together. I'm not, we are who we are on this earth, but boy, I feel so connected to anybody out there that either has an alcohol problem or kind of an emotional issue problem. And
How did
so,
this affect your health? I mean, 46 years of solid
yeah,
drinking like that, how did that
knock
affect?
knock on wood.
Go ahead.
I've been going for 9 years. My liver is totally normal. My health is so far, and one day at a time. I take nothing for granted. One
Right.
day might it absolutely. But I had a weird relationship with alcohol, Clay. Um, First of all, I never got drunk, and the thing I have learned when I say drunk, I got drunk. That's not. But the last day, November 11th, 2015, dude, at 2:30, I'm fidgeting. I'm all set to go to rehab the next day. I'm fidgeting in the office. It's Veterans Day. My wife's home. She looks at me and says, "Have a drink." And dude, that was the kindest thing she could have done. Because had I not had a drink, there's not a doubt in my mind I would have never gone to rehab the
Yeah.
next day.
Yeah.
And what I did at 2:30, I popped a brand new half gallon of Kentucky Gentleman.
Hmm.
And at 11:30 that night, I finished it. A half
The whole
gallon.
bottle.
And the whole bottle. Half gallon, not fifth, not quart, half gallon. And dude, unless you've been there, you can't understand this. I wasn't that drunk. And uh Lord.
What there had to come a time, several times when you hit rock bottom, when you hit the final rock bottom, I guess, for lack of a better term, what that is. How did you arrive at that point and know that? this is it.
Dude, I never hit rock bottom in the sense of, again, it's just my nature. I do absolutely stupid things, but I always do them in a way that I've got my bailout area. I got my kind of areas covered. For instance, driving. I never got arrested for drinking and driving because after 1980, 81, I never drank and drove. Hillary did.
Right.
So it was totally reckless at one level, but I always sort of, dude, my work, did it suffer? Of course it suffered. But some of my greatest accomplishments professionally were done when I was just a total friggin' drunk.
I was
And
gonna, I
I
was gonna,
honestly,
I was gonna ask you
yeah,
about
no, I was
work.
just to say,
Right.
dude, I mean, could I have done better? There's not a doubt in my mind that I could have done better had I not been a drunk. However, there are a lot of people that say I did pretty good, and I'm not trying to justify it or rationalize it. It didn't, dude. Two things. The one thing I've learned in the last 9 years is, and my goal each morning when I get up is to want to not drink more than I want to drink. And dude, I so not want to drink. I so little want to have a drink that's an easy one. Dude, I think where God blessed me and where I'm so fortunate, I do not have what I perceive to be a physical addiction to alcohol. For if I did, I just can't believe it would
But
be this sort of non tearing me up inside. The
if it wasn't
absence of alcohol.
a physical addiction, uh, I gather it's a mental addiction. And did you do it just because you liked it, or don't help me
Well,
understand?
I started out as a youngster doing it. It was kind of cool. Like I said, I graduated from high school young, and I just sort of, it was always the social thing going on. And then I kind of dug it. And again, I'm not a doctor. I don't know this, but again, my relationship with alcohol, it didn't affect me the way I would observe others that I was around and that are my friends, the way it affected them. So I think it was very psychological. When I was 20, when I was 30, 40, 50, oh, Patrick, you can't drink anymore. You're never going to have another drink. You and what army are going to stop me? At
Yeah,
55, Clay Mitchell, you
yeah.
and what army are going to stop me? At the age of 58, I had arrived at a point where, you know what? The thought of never having another sip of alcohol sounds pretty good. And dude, I'm not justifying it. I'm not saying, I'm talking about Patrick and Patrick only. But I honestly believe, knowing me, knowing my personality, knowing my sort of chemical issues and stuff, I had to put so much friggin', and this is a family show, so I'm gonna keep my language clean. I had to put so much freaking alcohol in my system over a 46-year period to satiate, to satisfy whatever this demon, whatever inside me was. And as with God sitting beside me and guiding me, I was very fortunate that I survived. And I'm
You know,
so thankful and so grateful.
in all those over 4 decades of drinking, what was your most embarrassing moment? What was your darkest moment over those 46 years? There had to have been some.
Well, I think back. I mean, some of the embarrassing moments were falling into the bushes several times as I'm trying to walk home with my wife. I'd say the most embarrassing moment was having a little bit of a potty accident as I'm rushing home trying to get home.
Yeah.
But you know what? I never got into fights. It just wasn't my name. I mean, alcohol kind of was the exact opposite. Again, I never needed alcohol to lose my inhibitions because I don't have any inhibitions, and I never have. It made me sort of a withdrawn, quiet. I was a withdrawn, quiet drunk, and I think that's where ultimately, and I justify, well, I'm not hurting anybody. That's where I think I most hurt my children. And you know what, dude? To this day, I spent so much of my 20s, 30s saying, Patrick, don't mess your kids up, please. And you know what? And I'm going to ultimately let my two daughters speak for themselves. Their mother is why they are who they are. But I would reckon to guess, if you ask both of them, they will say, you know what? Dad did a pretty good job. And brother, that's fucking Mount, that's Mount
Right.
Olympus.
That's all that counts.
That's all that counts. That makes me so happy.
Other than your family, your wife, did anybody else ever, out of the blue in a business setting, would ever just confront you and say, Patrick, you're
Dude,
drunk.
you want to hear some wild stuff? My best friend on this earth, when I told him that I was checking into rehab on November 11th, 2015, well, I checked in November 12th, but when I told him, he said, I didn't know you had a drinking problem. Yeah. And I had to clean up a couple of my, I had two business things hanging, projects, polls I was doing. I had to kind of touch base with the clients and let them know I was going to be out of commission for a couple of few months.
Right.
And they both said to me, I didn't know you had a drinking problem.
Yeah.
Dude, I was good at hiding it. And again, when I went out and drank, I didn't act like it. I didn't act like an asshole. I mean, I did, but not in the loud,
no more than what you do normally.
Right, no exactly. I was quietly obnoxious. Exactly.
We're at 17, Patrick.
Well, dude,
I'm glad to see. I'm glad to see you sober. 9 years is quite an accomplishment. It just is. I quit smoking cigarettes, a million years ago. Not hard to do. I can't imagine what it was like for you to finally come to that realization. Stop, and you did it, and it's continuous for 9 years. I have some friends that are alcoholics, and they're same thing. They just knew the moment that they had to stop, and through AA and networking and friends and buddies and all that, they got through it. And I want to congratulate you for the 9 years of sobriety.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate it. But the God's honest truth, Clay, I didn't do it. My family did it, and without my family, it wouldn't have happened. I know I'd given up. It wouldn't have happened. And we all have our lives that we live, and we look at different experiences, and we try to grow. And, a lot of my emotional problems, my mental health issues over the years, a lot of it was nature and some of it was nurture. And I spent way too much of my life kind of focusing on, well, why did so-and-so do something to me? Or what, And I'd listen to people as I was growing up, and I would learn a little bit each time.
Mm-hmm.
And when my dad died on July 11th, 2006, I looked him in the eye and I said, Dad, I love you. And if you want to, he was in a coma. I said, if you're ready to go, God's waiting for you. And an hour later, he passed. And at that point, I said to myself, and maybe it wasn't that exact moment. I don't know if it was that day, the next day, a week later. I said, Patrick, if you don't put your relationship with your father into a context from March 17th, 1957, the day you were born, to June 6th, 2011, June 11th, 2006, you are not being honest with yourself. You know, and my dad, Clay, loved Louis Daniel Armstrong, Satchmo.
Satchmo.
I see skies of blue, clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies crying. I'll watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Oh, yeah.
Goodbye, Patrick.
Goodbye, Patrick.